I'm just going to remind you what exists out there that you need to know. We talked about checking our auxiliary heat, burning off the dust, making sure that it's actually working. We are going to have temperatures this week and leading into next week that homes are going to need auxiliary heat to keep up. And that's a very unusual situation for us. And so that's something that you're going to have to, that's why we test this. That's why we check it, especially on our units. Like, it's pretty embarrassing to have a component of our unit not working that was paid for. I just wanted this slide in particular to remind you guys the safety concerns of undersized wiring. It's really common with heat strip systems. Maybe you had somebody had a furnace and they put a heat pump in place of a furnace and they didn't upgrade the wire sizing. That 120 14 gauge wire or 12 gauge wire, probably 12, that was on that furnace is not nearly big enough for our heat kits. This information is easy to come by. You just Google it, and you got images, you got charts, but this is something you have to be paying attention to. This is the kind of thing that comes back and sinks Kalos if we get it wrong. We put in the wrong wire sizing, wrong breaker wire combination with our heat kit, and wires melt in the walls and the house catches on fire. So that's possible. Typically when you have the breaker tripping, you have a heat kit running, you have the breaker tripping, you're checking for shorts to ground, some rub out somewhere. Also be looking at your wire size. If you have an undersized wire and it's getting really hot, your breaker's going to trip as well. So get the breaker sized correctly. The blower interlock actually is something you are almost never seeing, thankfully, in the field anymore. We did talk about setting customer expectation. You're going to have to do this week. Again, we're going to have these calls where maybe they were told 5 years ago about this, but in the last 5 years, there hasn't been a need for defrost. So you're hearing the unit make these horrible sounds as it switches into defrost. There's ice buildup on some level, frost buildup, I should say, which is normal in a really cold moment. Inside, they're experiencing the cold air flowing into the house because when it switches into defrost, it goes into cool mode, and heat strips come on to help overcome that. But the homeowner's experience is that it made this weird sound and then it stopped heating. I felt cold air. Something's wrong. No, nothing's wrong. You just went into defrost. That's the normal part of this cycle. So if you have tons of ice buildup, there's something wrong with our defrost, and that's very different. We need to actually figure out what's going on with our defrost. So how to test defrost? So this would be our carrier system. We'll go outside and actually do this hands-on. Sequence of defrost is listed in every manufacturer installation manual for a unit. Okay, so if you're wondering, is this defrost working properly? Is that why I have so much ice buildup? You're going to have two issues with your defrost. It's running when it shouldn't. We don't have a problem. Or we have a bunch of ice buildup. It's not actually melting the ice. Okay, so let's not get confused about when we're needing to confirm our defrost and figure out if that's the issue. Either you're seeing it physically run in defrost and there's no ice. You know something's wrong. Or there's ice buildup. Both of those situations are going to be very obvious. You don't have to come to like a no heating issue and be like, I wonder if it's a defrost board that maybe is doing this. It's going to be obvious. We either have ice or running in defrost when we don't have ice. The process for testing a defrost, you're going to disconnect the fan from the defrost board while the system's running in heat. And then the coils will freeze. Why will the coils freeze? You disconnect the condenser fan.
No heat being pulled through the coil?
Yep. So our outside becomes our evaporator coil in heat mode. And there's no heat being pulled by the fan across those coils. So it'll be like you're running in cool mode and your blower's off. That coil's going to start freezing. This is the best way to test the defrost mode simply because you're also testing the sensor that's built onto the board. So you do that, and then you're going to speed up the timer. As you can see right here in this little picture, we have the timer. You guys notice that on your defrost boards? The timer is this delay to make sure it's not cycling defrost too often. So basically when you get, you turn your unit on, let's say it's 30 degrees outside. The second it comes on and starts running, that coil is going to be below freezing. In order for your system to remove heat from the air, your refrigerant, the refrigerant has to be colder than the air. If the air is 30 degrees outside, you're going to be about 15 degrees colder on that coil, and it's going to be trying to absorb heat. So immediately, the sensor is going to say, I'm frozen, we need defrost. But we have a timer set up here that we're not going to go into defrost until it's run 90, 60, or 30 minutes, letting the ice build up. And hopefully, before that 90 minutes, it satisfies inside the house and turns off, and we never actually engage our defrost. If for some reason it goes to full 90 minutes, it hasn't satisfied, it's still sensing that we have ice, it engages defrost. So that's your timer. In between your cycles, from the moment that it says I need it, or the last defrost that happened, the moment the sensor says I need defrost, that timer will engage what you said it. In our market, we leave it at the highest, 90, because we want to give that unit a chance. If for some reason it was so cold that a unit was like building up ice, because the 90 minutes period allowed so much ice to build up, or like climates where there was more moisture, like on the coast, then you could move it down to 30 or 60, and it will repeat that cycle more often, and keep that ice off. But we shouldn't need that in our climate, 90 minutes.
We can manually change it?
Yeah, so you have the little jumper there.
Okay.
Yeah. So these defrosts use a thermostat sensor. Thermostat, what's the difference between a thermostat and a thermistor?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I would guess resistance, but I don't know.
Okay, resistance is a good word, good trigger word for it. Anybody else? A little visual helping? Thermostat, thermistor. All right, thermostat is an open-close switch. So basically, there's bimetal in here, metallic, some sort of metal that will actually bend at different temperatures. So if it's warmer than 32 degrees, that metal is going to be warped and pushing the wires apart so that it's open. It's an open circuit. If it gets below 32 degrees, that metal will bend back to straight, warp back to straight, or relax. And then there'll be a connection between our two wires. So the 24 volts that the board's always sending to it is going to come back when it's below 32 degrees. So it's just open, close. Really easy to test. Really easy to pull out your meter, check for 24 volts on one side, am I getting it back on the other? If I am getting it back, it better be below 32 degrees, or we have a failed close switch. These switches don't really fail. Wires rub out, the wires break, the shorts can happen from that. Maybe you can damage a board through this wire. The thermistor is a resistance measurement, so your board is actually measuring exact temperature through the resistance, right? So the thermistor is what we use on a thermostat or anything that we're using to actually have a temperature reading. It's measuring the resistance through here, and so it's not open and closed. You can't jumper a thermistor out. You have to have a working sensor. You actually have to have the right resistance. Oh, I didn't put that chart in here. That's okay. You guys have all used the thermistor charts, you know, infinity sensors. I'm checking those pretty often, or on a mini split. But if you take out the meters outside, right where it belongs, where we're going next, you just look up the 10K ohms temperature sensor, and then that resistance matching whatever temperature this is at. And so if this is still on the coil, you don't really know what coil temperature it is, and then you go to do your ohms, you need to actually know what temperature this is before you ohm it out, right? You can take it and put it in a glass of ice water, then you know it's sitting in 32 degrees. or let it sit for long enough to acclimate to whatever temperature the outdoor or ambient, wherever you're at, then do your resistance reading on it, and it just needs to be close. Then our sensor's good.
Yeah, don't get too worked up about the details. It's gonna be, if it's bad, it's gonna be.
It's
way
gonna be
off.
extreme.
It's not gonna be off by like a couple ohms.
Yeah,
It'll
it's gonna be
significant.
extreme. But we're still back in this process. So when you're gonna go to test it and you unhook the fan and it engages defrost, you're gonna need to jump out the speed up. So we don't wanna wait 90 minutes in our testing period, do we? So we're gonna jump out the speed up until we hear the defrost engage. And so that will engage, and immediately O that was not energized in heat mode becomes energized. So red coming into your defrost board energizes O, keeps Y stays calling, energizes O, and the refrigerant switches, and now we have hot discharged gas flying through our frozen coil outside, which means we also have cold refrigerant pumping through our evaporator coil inside. To help speed up this process, to make it more efficient, the condenser board also drops the fan call on the relay. So that's what the board does. That's why we disconnected it to get it to freeze, but then you'll also notice that the relay opens on the defrost board. So we don't have cold air coming across the coil while we're trying to defrost it. That hot gas can just sit there and build up. The last thing that it does is energizes the auxiliary heat. So red, again, coming into the defrost board is then directed onto the white, energizing it and going back inside. Make sense? Okay, great.
Alex,
Anybody know Alex?
So the speed up tap, is that the thing, that like, you remember you showed me the thing that you bypassed?
The time delay?
Is that the same thing? Oh, okay.
So if you're not calling for defrost, you can use the speed up to also bypass the time delay. Time delay. Yeah.
Alright.
And that's usually just like a 1 second on, pull it off. Whereas a defrost, you gotta hold it, I think, for 3 seconds or until you hear it engage. The next is demand defrost. This is this type of board. And you're gonna have, like you see here, the two sensors coming out of the board. One's on the coil, and you have a coil sensor. The other one's just ambient. So here you can see a visual of these two. This is a more efficient defrost because we're actually measuring coil temperature and outdoor temperature. And then it looks for delta temperature split between the two. When there's an extreme difference between our coil temperature and our outdoor, then we know that we've frosted up. This one's much colder than outdoor, then we've frosted up. Again, every one of these boards will also have a timer built in to make sure we're not short cycling our defrost. Because the second it comes on in a really cold day, it's gonna get that demand, it's gonna start frosting up. It'll have a built-in delay. The thing is, on the demand defrost boards, you can't actually set what that delay is, you can't change it. But then also, when it comes out of defrost, it's also measuring the coil temperature to make sure that our ice has melted before it comes out of defrost. Let me go back here because I don't think I mentioned that. But on this defrost cycle, the standard carrier thermostat cycle, it'll run defrost for a maximum of 10 minutes on most models. Every manufacturer might be slightly different. Or if this opens at 65 degrees, it opens. If it reopens before the 10 minutes, then it'll turn off defrost. But max, it's going to go 10 minutes. But again, if you're stuck in defrost, then you know you have a problem with your board. It shouldn't be going longer than 10 minutes. Whereas the demand defrost is based on actually temperature in the coil to know when to come out of defrost. With the demand defrost, what you need to know to diagnose it is that your thermistors need to be reading properly. So how to test that? The most common issue is just creatures or rub outs. Creatures biting through the wires and creating problems, or rub outs. And train is a common one where these wires, they go down in between the casing and the coil, and then they go underneath through leaves, crap, and then back up. And critters love to get in there and chew on those wires, and they can be really hard to actually trace all the way. But trace it all the way before you're quoting it. It could just be a wire rub out. When you're worried about the board, you've tested both the sensors, they're on point, but you still have ice buildup on your unit. Or if you've tested the sensors, they're both on point, but the system keeps running in defrost when there's not actually ice. So diagnosing it is pretty simple. You're testing your sensors and then you're observing what's happening. Should this be happening right now?
Thanks for watching. If you're willing, give this video a thumbs up and drop us a comment. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to stay updated with all of our future videos. And as a quick reminder, HVAC School isn't just a YouTube channel. Dive deeper with us at our main website, hvacrschool.com. Curious for more knowledge on the go? We've got you covered. Tune into the HVAC School podcast, available on all your favorite podcast apps. And while you're at it, join our thriving Facebook group. Also, don't miss out on our free mobile applications available for both iPhone and Android. We're all about community. For techs, by techs.